Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Foundry by Forge College. I am incredibly excited you're joining us today. We're continuing our deep dive into smart contract security, and specifically, we're looking at reentrancy and other attack vectors. Today's explainer is what I like to call the master engineer's blueprint for locking down smart contracts. Because, let's be real, hoping hackers just decide to play nice is definitely not a viable defense strategy. We've already spent some time in the trenches together, right? We've looked at mitigation techniques, we've written code, we've tested guards. But raw knowledge just isn't enough. So today, we're going to take all those raw materials and synthesize them into a concrete, repeatable, and actionable system that you can actually take out into the wild.
So here's our blueprint for today. We'll start with a quick reentrancy defense recap, then we'll map out 3 layers of defense. After that, we're building the mitigation checklist, talking about knowing when to escalate, and wrapping it all up with next steps and synthesis. Let's jump right in.
All right, part 1. The reentrancy defense recap.
Okay, so in our last explainer, we rolled up our sleeves and built some basic reentrancy guards. We were literally flipping a Boolean lock to stop an attacker from looping back into the contract, and we even weighed the trade-offs when it comes to gas costs and composability. But that brings us to, honestly, the most dangerous question a security engineer can ever ask. We built a guard, but is it enough? Think about it. Is slapping a simple padlock on the front door really enough to protect a massive, complex smart contract? Or is that kind of like installing a screen door on a submarine? If you've spent any time at all studying historical Web3 exploits, you absolutely know the answer. A simple lock is great, sure, but relying on a single point of failure against highly sophisticated attackers, you're just asking for trouble.
Which brings us to part 2. 3 layers of defense. We never ever want to rely on just one lock. We need a whole system. So let's look at the 3 core mechanisms that make up a true high-security vault schematic. And I want you to think of these not as alternatives to one another, but as overlapping layers of armor. Our first layer is the one we already know best, the reentrancy guard. Simply put, it's a temporary lock, maybe global to the whole contract, or maybe just specific to a single function that stops the execution path from being re-entered while an external call is still resolving. It's your deadbolt, but remember, a deadbolt can sometimes trap you inside, right? If you use a global locked state and your contract needs to talk to an external module that legitimately has to call back in, well, boom, you've just created a deadlock. It's a fantastic tool, but it's pretty rigid.
So, moving deeper into our vault, we hit our second layer of armor. This is a foundational engineering concept known as checks, effects, interactions, or CEI for short. Now, unlike a guard, which is an active physical style lock, CEI is a structural coding pattern. It is pure architectural discipline. The entire goal of CEI is to absolutely 100% ensure that all of your internal accounting, your state, is totally consistent before you ever make an external call. What we're doing here is slamming shut that window of vulnerability where a hacker could potentially observe or manipulate an inconsistent state.
Let's actually walk through the 1, 2, 3 flowchart of how CEI works in practice. Step 1, checks. This is where you verify the conditions. Does this user actually have the balance they're trying to withdraw? Step 2, effects. This is where you deduct that balance or update your internal state ledger. And then step 3, interactions. Only now, after the ledger is fully completely updated, do you actually send the funds or call that external contract. By rigorously separating the state updates from the external interactions, even if an attacker somehow manages to bypass your guard and re-enter the contract, they're going to find that their balance has already been zeroed out. The vault is empty before they even get to ask a second time.
And that brilliantly illustrates our third layer, pull payments. Look, let's be totally honest for a second. Trusting the recipient of a transaction in Web3 is a terrible, terrible idea. It's literally like handing a stranger your open wallet and just asking them to make their own change. Instead of pushing funds outward to users, which forces your contract to handle their potential failures or their malicious fallback functions, you migrate to a claimant-driven flow. You isolate the interaction in a clearly flagged helper function. Basically, the user has to come and pull their funds out themselves. This keeps all your critical state updates local and secure, which drastically shrinks your attack surface.
All right, let's move on to part 3, building the mitigation checklist. So we have our guard, our CI pattern, and our pool payments drawn up in our schematics. But just knowing about them isn't enough. We need to actually operationalize them. Just like in our other learning programs here at Forge College, we know that when the chaos hits, having a structured, rapid triage checklist is absolutely your best tool. When you're staring down a smart contract, you need to quickly scan for these defenses. For a reentrancy guard, do a quick check. Is the non-reentrant modifier physically sitting there on the function? For CEI,
Trace the code line by line. Do the state updates explicitly happen before the external calls? And for pull payments, look for a separated withdraw pattern, like an escrow system, where the user has to initiate the claim. If you can quickly check these off, you instantly understand the defensive posture of that contract.
And here is the absolutely crucial point. Layered mitigations reduce risk multiplicatively. You are not just adding one layer of security on top of another, you're multiplying how effective they are. Think about it. If a reentrancy guard fails because of some weird complex composability issue, your CEI pattern might just catch the state inconsistency. And if your CEI is implemented slightly wrong, the pull payment pattern isolates the damage. You never want to rely entirely on one single point of failure. You want to make the attacker smash through 3 completely different types of walls just to get a peek at the vault.
Okay, part 4. Knowing when to escalate.
So, what happens when standard blueprints just aren't enough? Because even the best checklists have limits, right? As an engineer, your job isn't just to blindly follow a checklist. It's knowing exactly when to throw that checklist out and call in the heavy machinery. These right here are your escalation red flags. If you're auditing a contract and you start seeing external calls to completely untrusted contracts, or maybe you see these complex multi-stage state machines where settlement is dragged out over several steps. What about interactions with upgradable proxies, or delegate calls, or shared token accounting spread across a bunch of distinct contracts? If you're looking at a protocol and you spot 2 or more of these signals, standard mitigation checklists are officially no longer sufficient. It is time to escalate. And by escalate, I mean breaking out the fuzzing tools, running symbolic analysis, or sitting down and manually tracing the entire call graph under adversarial conditions. These signals mean the environment is complex enough that standard locks are probably going to behave in really unpredictable ways.
And finally, part 5. Next steps and synthesis.
Wow, okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We've taken raw technical concepts and forged them into a practical, highly layered defense strategy. So, let's see how this all fits into the broader security landscape. You've got your mitigation checklist in hand. You know how to spot a guard, how to verify CEI, and how to identify pull payments. You also know exactly what signals scream for escalation. But keep in mind, reentrancy is just one single vector. The exact same complex state machine signals we literally just talked about, those red flags, they're going to apply directly to our next major hurdle, race conditions, because it's no longer just about if an attacker can re-enter your contract, but when.
Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on. What happens when timing, and not just the execution order, is weaponized against your contract? How do you defend a vault when the attacker can manipulate the very clock that the vault relies on? Keep those escalation triggers in the back of your mind, because trust me, you're going to need them. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I highly encourage you to go visit forge.college to dive even deeper into the subject, grab some hands-on practice, and explore a wealth of other Web3 security topics. Stay curious, stay structured, and I will see you in the next one.